This afternoon, it's my pleasure to introduce an alumna of this department. Wanjung Che makes installations, drawings, prints, 3D printed sculptures, and other work that explore the ways in which identities and cultures are rooted in deep histories of human migration, which affects, how we swim in the world and also our DNA. Sort of thinking more about cultural hybridity than cultural authenticity, I think. Born and raised in Seoul, South Korea, Wanjung's work reflects her commitment to labor-intensive ways of making and equally intensive research processes. And I love that dual commitment to being a real maker's maker and also a research-based artist at the same time. Wanjung received a BA and an MFA from Hongik University in Seoul before completing a second graduate degree in the MFA Fine Arts Department at SVA. And she, for the past many years, has been an adjunct professor in the Art Foundation and Sculpture departments at Virginia Commonwealth University, also known as VCU. Wanjung work has been featured in solo and two-person exhibitions at the Anderson in Richmond, Art Place in Seoul, Mixed Greens Gallery here in New York City, the Gwangju Arts Foundation in Gwangju, Korea, Arario Gallery in Seoul, which also shows another alum of this program, Jihoon. Yeah. I think it's Jihoon Park. Yeah. HP France Gallery in Tokyo, Real Artways in Hartford, Connecticut, a really well-known, well-established arts organization there. PH Gallery here in New York, at All Gallery in New Haven, Connecticut. She's been included in group shows at the American University Museum in Washington, D.C., Visual Arts Center of Richmond, Virginia, Ras Al Ain Gallery in Amman, Jordan, Gallery Nomad in Yeosu, Korea, South Korea, Dohing Art Gallery in Seoul, Torpedo Factory Art Gallery in Alexandria, Virginia, 108 Contemporary in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Korean Cultural Center in Washington, D.C., Space Cottonseed in Singapore, Total Museum in Seoul, Wave Hill, which is up in the Bronx in New York, Creme de la Creme in Prague, Czech Republic, the Watermill Center, multiple projects at Watermill, I think, out on Long Island. That's this art center that's affiliated with the artist choreographer Robert Wilson. Cuchi Fritos here in the city, Q Art Foundation in New York, the Walter Wickeser Gallery in New York. And that was back shortly after you completed the program here, right? Back in the early 2000s. PS 122 Gallery and Newhouse Center of Contemporary Art, which, for those of you who don't know about it, is the oldest contemporary art venue in Staten Island. And it's in the Snug Harbor area. So Wanjung's art has been supported through grants and residencies from the Trewick Foundation, Vermont Studio Center, Seoul Foundation for Arts and Culture, the Museum of Arts and Design's Artist in Residence Program, Arts Council Korea, and Arts Alliance. Please join me in giving a warm and enthusiastic welcome to our very own Wanjung Che.
Thank you. Thank you so much for introducing me and inviting me here. Thank you, Mark and Isabel. It is such a privilege for me to be invited this afternoon. And I never entered this MFA building since 2005. So it's hard to stop talking. It is so different. And I used to live in New York for 7 years. And I would say SVA and New York gave me lots of challenge and encouragement. Today, I would like to talk about my earlier work at SVA to current project because all of my works are deeply connected and influence one another. But yesterday, I almost lost my voice. So today, I hope it's okay for everyone. Yeah. And when I moved to New York for pursuing an MFA, everything was so confused and ambiguous. It was before smartphone in early 2000. 1 week after I moved to US, the school started. After moving to US, I really feel I'm a Korean. In this room, I just heard in this room, many of the students are from international country, and some of you are from other states. So I think some of you may feel the same way as me. I suffered from isolation and frustration. I was uncertain. My language, culture, manner, belief were untrue. And my series of sculptures, installation, painting, and drawings are all about my identities adjusting to the new world. This is my first work at SVA. I used to make sculptures during my undergrad and grad in Korea, but I threw out everything that I knew before, and I wanted to start from nothing. I didn't know what I'm doing, and I just drew with my X-ray films I collected. And this image looks like a pelvis, but I drew 3 skulls in there, one front face in the middle, and 2 side profile images on the side. It is manipulated imagery. At that time, I might want to make some visual deception or confusion. And I was continuously looking for what is my certainty. And finally, I found out. My certainty was the skeleton structure. It was very subjective, of course. And despite the vast difference in culture, society, and language, the common determinator of all human beings is the body. Among the many parts of the body, our bones can be considered to be the most definite and certain in structure and form. And fossils and human skeleton remains in museum. Their skin color, belief, thoughts, and feelings are easily disappeared, physically. I strongly grabbed bone structure and fossil images as my certainty. Those are the first practice of hot glue gun drawing on clear plastic sheet at SVA. I had my first solo show at PH Gallery in Chelsea, a few blocks away from here. Right after graduation, I have a great chance to show my large-scale installation in the city. It was an amazing opportunity for me. Comparing other mediums such as painting, drawing, or small sculpture, it is hard. It is not easy to get exhibition opportunities to show a room size installation. I have made a small version of dinosaur in the second semester at SVA, but I wanted to remake 2 for the show. I transferred the gallery space into another world where 2 dinosaurs are walking out the space. I drew the skeleton structure of the dinosaur on a transparent plastic sheet and using black hot glue gun. And then I suspended lots of layers from the ceiling. If you see the part of the installation, they look like abstract linear drawings. The linear image layers and shadow of the dinosaur allows the viewer to imagine the creature's invisible body. At that time, I think every day I feel life is full of contradictions, especially between things and things that are certain and uncertain. I always feel I was in between, so confused. Uncertainty and stability, two-dimensional and three-dimensional, solidity and ephemeral, transparency and depth, light and shadow, illusion and reality. My fascination with transformation extended to the relationship with space. My studio in New York City was so limited. Actually, it's much smaller than gallery space. So I made dinosaur part by part and then assembled all of the parts in the gallery for the first time. I was a bit scared. So my first show is kind of important step for me. It was pretty great. I made this installation, Fish and Feather, at the third semester of SVA. So I brought many SVA works for this presentation. So later I made a 200 Fish and Feather using the same technique and material. I have showed 200 Fish and Feather at U Bloomberg Building in Midtown, New York City for 8 months. My initial feelings of physical and psychological disorientation led me to search for a common determinator between different things like fish and feather, or more later. Fish fossil and feather fossil are visually so similar to me. When two-dimensional transparent plastic met light and shadow, they expanded into 3D beings. I centered in the skeleton as a visual reference to my core being and shared connection to their other humans, as well as a link to enduring natural structure as a fossil. This installation gave me many chances to have exhibition, art fairs, and meet many people. Large-scale installation always need ceiling structure. It was challenge always. And exhibition taught me and give me many lessons and development. There is my SVA studio. I heard that Sarah Z used this corner studio, and Sarah Z is my thesis advisor, and I worked for her as a studio assistant for a Whitney Museum solo show. I have met many great mentor and professors at SVA. I appreciate it. And at the final semester, I was questioning what if I were in between fish and feather. If I were fish, I needed wings, horns, and masks to survive the city. And I became hybrid fish. I made various characters of hybrid fishes and intended to give them the perfect environment, like two mountains and air bubbles. I always invite viewers to my inside of my identities. This work still has influenced my other works. And one day I was reading a book and then pick up the one sentence to represent myself very well. I have butterfly in my stomach. That was me. So I put the butterflies in hybrid fish's stomach, and then I made my own languages and idioms. I have a strawberry in my stomach, or I have orange, kiwi, rose in my stomach. And then I remembered a summer rain period in Korea. I provided that climate for my installation. I made a Korean rain for Austin, Texas. I kept utilizing the same material, hot glue. I draped glue on tons of strings. This is detailed image at Isley Museum in New York. When I was young, maybe until grad student, I was so afraid to be an artist because I knew I'm not confident enough to cut my eyes, cut my ears, or I was not brave enough to live just focusing on only art. But after meeting many real active artists and curator in New York through exhibition, I decided or figure out I was an artist. In 2008, my artistic interest was moving toward abstract and color expressions. 56 pieces of plexiglass with hot glue gun drawing and acrylic paint are hanging from the ceiling. This installation expressed my dual viewpoint and in between this. These images came from growing cells and map and continental drift theory. I imagine that many images have visual similarity, even though they exist in different lasting time to be alive, and that it seems that we look at the world through a microscope or telescope. Chaos in my studio. And yeah, always deadline gives me a big pressure and a superpower at the same time. Whenever I meet a new space or receive new exhibition floor plans, I'm so excited. Every exhibition space has different color and texture of floors and walls. My installation can be flexible as it adapts and adjusts to the space like me. In 2010, I was stopped. The season has changed and new era started. Hybrid fish has frozen up in the ice age, but they're not dead. I made metal copper metal hybrid fish and casted the ice shape urinized synthetic resin. I left from New York. When I was in deep depression, I heard I was nominated for one of the artists for collaboration project with Swarovski Crystal and fashion magazine Harper's Bazaar. Swarovski Crystal provided a lot of materials to me, and I intended to express moments to melt because I was present. So I started to melt Swarovski crystals in hot shop. And ashes, dirt, and half melting ornament became stick together. Those perfect shape of crystal and clear-cut structure was burned and destroyed, but I thought that's more beautiful and meaningful. And it was first experience to use hot shop for me. Hybrid fish started melting down from the frozen status. It was Swarovski's 20th anniversary project. The collaboration with Swarovski Crystal opened the new door. I have been interested in transparent material for a long time, but I never had chances to explore glass. And moments to melt and breathless were made few months after I gave birth my daughter, Bandy. I was struggling to heavy postpartum depression and lost my balance in the life. I poured super hot liquid glass onto copper metal hybrid fish, and then metal hybrid fish boiled inside of glass. This work is expression of sad, painful, and grotesque, but beautiful moment I went through. They look like jewelry and fossil for me. My hybrid fish became my own fossil, my certainty. Sometimes I use the LED lights for 27 pieces of glass works. Sometimes I fill up the water inside. And in 2009, I created extraordinary and ordinary installation. I have searched about my identity and the state of inner me until then. I started to reflect on others from this work. Faces of different people are portrayed using hot glue gun, like a simple pen drawing on color plexiglass, which are hanging from ceilings. And then captured color shadow. All faces came from magazine and newspaper. I wanted to invite viewers inside of installation. I always wanted it. They can meet many faces of extraordinary and ordinary. And shadow of viewers and sculpture can be overlapped and mixed. Those hanging sculptures were shaking when viewers were passed by. Every being has its own nationality, gender, appearance, culture, background, dreams, hopes, love, companionship, value, and fear. I believe that each and every one of us in the earth is both extraordinary and ordinary, like you and me. And during the exhibition in Arario Gallery in Seoul, Korea, Samsung people have seen my works and asked to purchase this installation for Samsung's new headquarters building. My answer was, yeah, that's so cool. And Samsung is a global corporation company, and I understood why they were interested in my extraordinary and ordinary installation. And the architect team designed the lobby space for this more than 3-story height installation. This is one of permanent collection in Samsung headquarters building now. At that time, I was 6-7 months pregnancy, so it was very hard. But if you have a chance to visit Samsung headquarters building in Korea, please check out my installation, please. Yeah, I have showed this installation in other venues several times. And I showed this drawing series and extraordinary and ordinary installation together at the Arario Gallery at the time. And classified advertisement drawing series are based on portrayal of anonymous people from free newspaper and magazine. Through this process, my drawing reflect on the juxtaposition of overlapping between originality and banality of the individual's identity, and between the actual appearance and fabrication that is created in the word vocabulary. When I made this series in Philadelphia, I spent many time with the free magazine and newspaper at the local coffee shop in Philadelphia. And I think I had no family, no artist friends, no friends. I have nobody there because I just followed my husband's job. So I was so interested in classified advertisement. Those less than 1 inch tiny size advertisement were so mysterious, curious for me. I collected a lot of advertisement and I read each vocabulary one by one and imagined how they look like. And then I started to draw montages, portrait. This drawing newspaper advertisement was written, hot ladies, satin sheet, busty blonde. So I just read it, that just vocabulary, and then, oh, maybe she looked like this. So, and then I made many montages. For me, the most interesting part of the advertisement was man seeking woman, woman seeking man, man seeking man, woman seeking woman. So I was into that section in the newspaper, and I collected a lot and read and imagined carefully. And then I decided to become a matchmaker. So I didn't know anybody, so I may need some relationship with others, among others. So anyway, my matchmaking was successful for several couples in my drawing series. In advertisement, we can easily compare the price and values. So I put the many grocery prices here and woman escort prices over there. And many different eggs prices. I juxtaposed chicken egg price and woman egg price, 5,000. It's all from newspaper. So I had read many obituary too. I portrayed through most banal and everyday vocabulary and re-rendered into drawing. I illustrated over 2 anonymous portraits here. And this is armor for hybrid fish. After moving to Virginia, now I live in Virginia. Virginia, I turned to historic precious material silverware. Virginia is very different from New York and South Korea. So I fell here, I don't know. For me, the Virginia is real America. So I embarked on an investigation of Western armor and vintage silverware handlooms. These armors are for my icon and myself. I guess I needed polished protective shells enrichment. After evolution and mutation, hybrid fish may need, metaphorically, exoskeleton to help my feeling, like fearless or secure. For a long time in US, I have fear for being misunderstood that all foreigners and migrants feel. It is definitely labor-intensive work. I cut through engravings by using Juras, so it's a hair thin, so blade. And the silverware is recognized its lineage with a Western heritage, yet I have transferred singular pigment into complex composition with personal sensibilities. This original installation view at Wave Hill, I made 9 armors for hybrid fish. I always enjoyed the looms of silverware and armor in the museum. And I thought a million times that's so similar. I put hand-blown glass bubble on armors after a Wave Hill exhibition. I flattened silver plate piece and cut them out and chopped them down in new shape. I used a George Washington's face for the armor, like a European king symbol. And I transferred it to my own heritage and legacy. They are armor for my hybrid identity still. And my interest in silver objects related to their former quantity as well as their cultural connotations, especially their gender and class association with people of means and domestic life, as well as their service as memento of familiar heritage and legacy. So at that time, I have had artist residency program at Museum of Arts and Design around the Columbus Circle in New York. And I had many chances to meet people who have good story, funny story, crazy story, and memory about silverware. I have met many vegetarians in New York City, so I eager to create a vegetarian angel for them. And I made pencil collage drawing first, and then I etched images on silver plate. And some images are inside of butter plate and silver kettles. I carved my narrative drawing on various silverwares for my hairlums. Yeah, at that time I have sore throat. So, and during my pregnancies, I drew daily sketches. So 7 years later, I carved these drawings on silver kettle. This title is Borderless. It's wearable art and metal collage work in which I cut antique silver plates employed by people in the past and resembled the piece in the shape of armor shoes. For approximately 20 years, I have been dividing my time between Korea and US and resulting in a nomadic self-identity. I use many metaphors for representing myself and my identity, but at that time, I made my own size armored shoes and had them. Whenever I had to wear these armored shoes, I was not comfortable, just so painful. And borderless is the symbol of my nomadic identity, and that uncomfortable feeling is the part of it. And also I found very important English vocabulary engravings from silver plate, art, thank you, finalists, and so on. I cut them out and put them on the soles and hillside, like a Nike sneakers. Yeah. And then I finished this project during residency program at Museum of Art and Design. And I worked so hard, I think. And my DNA project is a natural extension of previous project centered around the body as a metaphor of certainty, hybridity, and the evolution of culture identity in time of uncertain. I have conducted extensive research regarding my own DNA test in 2017. And my DNA test result was very disappointing. I'm always 100% Asian. So I feel, where is my hybridity? So I expected at least a few percentage from other origins, because I'm eager to find my evidence why I migrate to West, North America. In investigation my personal ancestry, I discovered that the majority of my ancestors moved from South Africa to Northeast Asia and stayed there for rice. We were all Homo sapiens, and we all have same hometown in South Africa, right? And I traced the migration of my ancestry to Northeastern Asia. In this result, which allows for a more direct investigation of nomadic past, that lead to my existence and research into human evolution based on migration. There is the half of installation view at my solo show in Korea. I wanted make it museum format exhibition, including diagrams, maps, objects, text, but I showed some subjective facts, manipulated information, and just my imagination too. We cannot see our DNA, nor we can see the long ancestry history that lead to us. But I strive to imagine and visualize this invisible evidence of long and complex cultural histories. As DNA test technology does not identify one's culture and artistic aspect, and tells nothing of influence acquired in global landscape. And I made a word map puzzle. It can be fitted never. And this is information about me, Won Jung-tae. It is between factual fact and fake information. There are 16th century map that's real, but I tracing my ancestry journey, but that is not, I don't know. I just put it. And I designed a wallpaper based on my DNA results and DNA shape. So those are my past work. And here is my current project. Where are you from? This question is perhaps one of the most fundamental questions in our society. And as an Asian and live in America, I have had this question many times, maybe like you. My current series, Where Are You From?, is based on my research on my own DNA test and showing my firm belief that humanity is evolved based on migration. This project is long-term research-based work. 162 by 168 by 110 inches installation titled Roots is made out of mixed media. And I made it in my 1.5 car garage. So I made it part by part and brought and assembled them at the gallery for the first time, like my dinosaur piece. There are 30 pieces of 3D printed figure, which are made by computer modeling and digital fabrications. Those are detailed images. And let me explain more about my process and research of this project. After my DNA test, I sparked an interest in the DNA and composed the human responsible with making some of all this sculpture. And I asked my self if I have shared the DNA with primitive artists who made prehistoric sculpture. How can I understand them? I wanted that my project make visible a present and future of identifying by complicating DNA as an identifier and connector rooted in art historical driven imaginaries. This is Lion Man, and Lion Man is the oldest known zooformic sculpture and a masterpiece, and sculpted with great originality and technical skill from mammoth ivory. This 40,000-year-old image is just 31 centimeters, is 1 foot tall. It has the head of a lion with a partly human body. It is hybrid figure. So I feel, oh, we are connected. So for me, he's inspiring and mysterious and from a world beyond ordinary nature. He is the oldest known representing of a being that does not exist in physical form, but symbolized idea about the supernatural. I researched various prehistoric sculpture. This sculpture was needed over 400 hours on labor with hand tools. Making sculpture was not a hobby for primitive artists as well. This new interest has led to the question, or at the center of my recent work. What would a union between Lion Man and Venus yield? How does the union of these two figures reflect on migration, identity, culture, and hybridity in today's complex and technology-loaded world? And I have used significant characteristics and original sculptures to sketch 5 generations of offspring composing the family tree. I made the roots, the image is a black installation, the family tree, based on this pencil drawing. I planned to create a reproduction of Lion Man and Venus figure and using 3D printing technology and just using original 3D data from museum. But the plan was the just plan. Nowadays, numerous museums are just sharing 3D data of their collections. I easily found and downloaded Willendorf's Venus data. At that time, I never have imagined how much time I have to spend to finish this project. I found her at Smithsonian Museum website, but I couldn't download it, even though I emailed to Smithsonian Museum, but never answered. In 2018, I emailed to British Museum and Ulm Museum in Germany for downloading data, requesting that, but never answered. And my friend John introduced a VCU anthropology professor, Dr. Min. Dr. Min has the same difficulties with me. And 2019, I received the email after my husband visited the Ulm Museum in Germany, where the collected Lion Man. So I'm not blaming this museum because they have their own policies and restrictions. So this is my personal experience with those museums in 2018 and 19. I don't know how they have changed it now. But finally, I received email from Dr. Kurt from Ulm Museum in Germany. He has studied for a long time about just Lion Man, and he is in Ulm Museum curator. I was super happy, but he said the museum cannot allow it. So I completely gave up to get original data from Ulm Museum in Germany. So I started to make my own 3D data, contemplating the process of far-off ancestor who used natural materials and hand tools. I produced new forms via new technology, even though I trained realistic and figurative sculpting for a long time in Korea. And it is not difficult for me to make them by clay or other traditional materials. But I wanted to go new ways. Utilizing 3D print and ZBrush program, I have created reproduction of the Lion Man and Venus figurines and their descendants, which from the first line of the image in the family tree. Each individual becomes an abstract portrait which question the very nature of hybrid identities. Later, I hired 2 assistants for computer modeling. It was not easy for me to work with 2 computer assistants remotely. One was in Korea and the other was in Richmond, Virginia. And I have the strong reason for hire 2 assistants, not 1. My 2 assistants have very different skill and style to use the program. So I let them share the data. So I just want to make some mutual, sense. So, but I don't know the one certain, style. I didn't want to do it. So about 3 years, I have worked with them. Each branching figure is born of illustrative and visual combinations. My fictional family is subjective counterpart to mankind's own development. This is my first sculpture was printed by 3D printer in early summer in 2018. I thought many times that primitive tools and traditional materials are much easier and efficient to make art for me. Here is Lion Man and Venus figures as primitive first parents in my family tree. They're great parents, grandparents maybe. And in the long run, I couldn't obtain the original 3D data of Lion Man and Venus from museum. So those are my version of Lion Man and Venus. And after installing Lion Man and Venus at the gallery, suddenly I felt, oh my gosh, a successful matchmaker came back. So I'm back. So, and during 3 years, I went through a lot of trial and error. Technical problems of 3D printer and filaments gave many failure figures. But as a sculptor, the contrast of geometric interior structure and exterior texture are so exciting. They reminded me of Greek and Roman sculptures. And then I made a failure sculptures on purpose. But during a pandemic period, I have thought more about failure and mistake. For a few years, my proposal of Where Are You From and Family Tree project have nominated and went to one of the finalists from great art venues, but the exhibition was postponed, canceled, and failed due to COVID-19 or other issue. When I received email from the curator that this project was selected finally, and I knew it is time for refreshing my idea. So my original installation idea was all 32 figures would display on the clean white wall with red color lines, exactly same as it's a 5th-generation drawing. But the idea was changing, and I would say it is evolving. I was concentrated on underground part of family tree, not branch part. Usually the family tree picture use the branch part. Now I think the reason why I had to wait to show this project for quite a long time is that my project may need time for hibernating and growing under the ground. And root system is deeply related to surviving instinct. Countless thin, fine roots transform to tangled but strong and solid sculpture. And through my immersive installation, I complicate the culture aesthetic of hybridity, heterogeneity, regional and global identity in post-colonial times, playing on a multitude of tensions while embracing hybridity as form, moving fluidly between feminine and masculine, nature and culture, internal and external, ephemeral and enduring through the microscopic and macro worlds. My labor-intensive practice has informed by equally intensive research-based process. In my computer, 32 data of figures are stored. There are 32 kinds of my identities. In this country, people have often asked me, where are you from? And through this project, I want to ask you a question, where are you from? For past 2 years, I have done a few residency programs which are heavy material-based programs. I refreshed my old skill, and learned new technique during residencies. I kept investigating in betweenness and currently I have been exploring between 2D and 3D printing technique and traditional material clay. I think the structure of my identity remains open, and it is always in process of becoming. And my 20 years studio practice is a process of becoming too. So I'm not bored making art yet. So from here, it's my students' work. Because I have the other identity as a teacher educator. So I have taught at Hongik University in Korea for 2 semesters, but I didn't have a big interest about teaching. And I always feel I'm so busy to make my art and prepare exhibition. And yeah, I want to be best to take care of my daughter. She's 12 years old now and family. But one day I thought my daughter is growing so fast and getting independent and want to know about younger generation. So now I'm teaching, I have taught teaching 3D sculpture at Art Foundation in Virginia Commonwealth University. Most of my students are freshmen and barely have experience to make 3D work. And 100% of my students never tried large-scale installation art. But my assignment is installation art. So ironically, students made amazing project during COVID. And the top one really made an actual size floor plan in empty elementary school parking lot. Because she missed her parents' and grandparents' house, which were recently sold. And yeah, she just used a choker and ruler with the real floor plan from their grandparents, and they made amazing work. And the bottom one, David enjoyed playing computer game Minecraft so much, but that looks like Photoshop images, but he made it real, and he uses wood and acrylic paint in his parents' back door, and he made beautiful, yeah, the video stuff. I'm so proud of my students. They're freshmen. So, and yeah, I give Kip assignment. And then the top one, Lily made a real land art during spring semester. It was a virtual class during COVID. I really want to visit there, but she was out of country and she used a long-term project, and then beautifully turned out. And Lynn from France visualized COVID time with smoke bomb, red color smoke bombs. And every semester I gave a wearable arts assignment to, freshman Heather is too busy to finish her stuff, so need a multitasking for hands. And Jason, in the bottom, Jason expressed her awkward feeling at dentist office. And yeah, I always miss the energetic vibe and proactive energy in New York City, but I'm doing well there. Yeah, with my students and my family, still working. So this is my last slide. Thank you for joining me.